The news of the attack sent shockwaves through the human colonies and the broader galactic community. On the human colony world of New Andorra, a young security officer named Alina Petrovna found herself at the center of the unfolding crisis. As the chief of security for the colony's primary settlement, Alina had spent the past several years dealing with little more than routine infractions and occasional disputes between the diverse array of human and alien residents. The idea that her quiet posting could be targeted by some unseen enemy was deeply unsettling. When the initial distress calls came in from the outlying farming communities, Alina immediately mobilized her team, rushing to provide aid and assess the damage. What they discovered was horrifying. Entire settlements had been razed, with no survivors left behind. The method of attack was efficient, surgical, clearly the work of a force with advanced military capabilities. This wasn't some random act of violence, Alina told the colony's governing council as they surveyed the devastation. These were coordinated strikes, carried out with precision. We're dealing with a threat that knows exactly what it's doing. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. But who would want to target us? Asked the colony administrator, a graying human woman named Erica Svensson. We're a peaceful people, focused on agriculture and scientific research. We don't have any enemies in the galactic community. Alina shook her head. That's what troubles me. We may not see ourselves as a threat, but someone out there clearly does, and they seem intent on wiping us out. In the days that followed, the attacks continued, with more outlying settlements falling victim to the mysterious assailants. Alina and her team worked tirelessly to fortify the colony's defenses, but the sense of vulnerability only grew. It was clear they were outmatched, both in firepower and technological sophistication. As the news spread, the human government on Earth moved quickly to dispatch a fleet of heavily armed warships to New Andorra, determined to protect their colony and uncover the truth behind the attacks. But even this show of force did little to deter the unseen enemy. They're toying with us, Alina remarked grimly to her second-in-command, a seasoned human surgeon named Mikhail Volkov. Every time we think we've got the upper hand, they strike somewhere else. It's like they know exactly what we're going to do before we do it. Volkov nodded, his weathered face etched with concern. Whatever this enemy is, they're not like any of the other alien races we've encountered. They're operating on a different level entirely. Alina couldn't help but agree. In her years of service, she had dealt with her fair share of hostile alien encounters, but nothing quite like this. The precision, the strategic planning, it all pointed to a level of military sophistication that far outstripped humanity's own capabilities. Do you think it could be the Zool? Volkov asked, referring to the notorious warrior race known for their ruthless conquests across the galaxy. Alina shook her head. No, the Zool are brutes. They don't bother with subtlety or misdirection. This is something else entirely. She paused, her brow furrowed in deep thought. Whatever it is, we're clearly not prepared to deal with it. If the fleet from Earth can't stop these attacks, I don't know what will. Volkov placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We'll figure it out, Alina. We always do. Humanity's got a way of surprising the rest of the galaxy when they least expect it. Alina managed a wry smile. Let's hope you're right, Mikhail. Because if we don't find a way to stop this enemy soon, there may not be a human colony left on New Andorra. As the days turned into weeks, the situation on New Andorra only grew more dire. The human fleet arrived, but its attempts to engage the enemy proved futile. The mysterious attackers would strike, inflict heavy casualties, and then vanish without a trace, leaving the human forces scrambling to respond. Alina and her security team worked around the clock, combing through every scrap of data and intelligence they could gather. But the more they uncovered, the more perplexed they became. This wasn't the work of a single alien race. It was a coordinated effort, with multiple factions seemingly working in concert. They're playing us, Alina said during one tense strategy meeting. Every time we think we've got them figured out, they change tactics. It's almost like they know exactly what we're going to do before we do it. The human admiral in charge of the fleet, a grizzled veteran named Andrei Petrov, nodded grimly. That's what troubles me the most. This enemy isn't just technologically superior. They seem to have an almost supernatural understanding of our capabilities and decision-making processes. Alina leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Which begs the question, how? How could any alien race know us that well? We've only had limited contact with the broader galactic community. There's no way they could have studied us this extensively. Petrov shook his head. I wish I had an answer for you, Alina. But the truth is, we're dealing with an adversary that appears to know us better than we know ourselves. And that's a terrifying prospect. The meeting adjourned with a sense of unease permeating the room. Alina returned to her office, her mind racing with possibilities. Were the attackers perhaps a splinter faction of an alien race they'd encountered before? Or was this the work of an entirely new player in the galactic power struggle? As she pored over the latest intelligence reports, a startling realization began to dawn on her. What if the problem wasn't that their enemy knew them too well, but rather that humanity itself was concealing something? Alina's fingers flew across her terminal, accessing classified military archives and intelligence databases. She had always prided herself on her attention to detail, her ability to connect the dots. And now, as she pieced together the fragments of information, a troubling picture began to emerge. The reports of human weakness in past conflicts, the perceived technological inferiority, the assumption that humanity was terrible at war. It all seemed to point to a carefully crafted facade. What if the galactic community had been lulled into a false sense of security, underestimating the true capabilities of the human species? Alina's heart raced as she considered the implications. If her suspicions were correct, then the attacks on the New Andorra colonies were not random acts of aggression, but rather a calculated attempt to probe the limits of human defenses. And if that was the case, then the real battle had only just begun. With renewed determination, Alina set out to uncover the truth, knowing that the fate of her colony, and perhaps the entire human race, hung in the balance. Alina's suspicions had set her on a dangerous path. As she delved deeper into the classified military archives, piecing together fragments of information that painted a troubling picture, she knew she was treading on thin ice. If her superiors discovered the extent of her unauthorized access, the consequences could be severe. But the stakes were too high to ignore her growing convictions. Whatever was happening on New Andorra, it was far bigger than a simple series of attacks. There was a larger game being played, one with the very survival of humanity as the prize. Carefully covering her tracks, Alina continued her covert investigation, recruiting a small team of trusted confidants to assist her. Together, they meticulously analyzed every scrap of data, searching for clues that could shed light on the true nature of the threat facing their colony. The more they uncovered, the more the pieces began to fall into place. It became increasingly clear that the attacks were not the work of a single alien race, but rather a coordinated effort orchestrated by a coalition of factions threatened by humanity's presence in the galaxy. They see us as a wild card, Alina told her team during one late-night strategy session, an unpredictable element that doesn't fit neatly into their power structures. And so they've decided to eliminate us before we can upset the balance of power. Mikhail Volkov, her second-in-command, nodded grimly, which explains why they're going to such lengths to conceal their involvement. They don't want the rest of the galaxy to know they're behind this. Alina's eyes narrowed. Exactly. And that means we can't rely on any outside help. We have to handle this ourselves, without drawing the attention of our would-be enemies. The team huddled over the holographic displays, analyzing the latest intelligence reports. So what's our plan of action? Asked one of the younger officers, a sharp-eyed human named Lena Petrov. Alina took a deep breath, steeling herself for what she was about to propose. We need to turn the tables on them. We need to make them think their plan is working, all while we prepare a decisive counterattack. The room fell silent as her words sank in. Volkov was the first to speak up. You're talking about deceiving the entire galactic community. That's an incredibly risky gambit. Alina nodded. I know. But if we don't, we may not have a colony left to defend. We have to be willing to take drastic measures to protect our people. Lena leaned forward, her expression intense. What exactly did you have in mind? Over the next few weeks, Alina and her team worked tirelessly, meticulously crafting a plan that would allow them to lure their unseen enemies into a false sense of security. They began by carefully planting disinformation and misleading intelligence, feeding the alien coalition exactly what they wanted to see. At the same time, they mobilized their most elite military forces, drawing on highly classified training programs and experimental technology that had been kept hidden from the broader galactic community. Volkov and his team of seasoned veterans spearheaded the covert preparations, working around the clock to ensure everything was in place for the decisive counterattack. As the attacks continued, the human fleet on New Andorra appeared to falter, unable to mount an effective defense against the relentless onslaught. Alina and her team watched with bated breath, praying that their ruse would work as intended. Finally, the moment of truth arrived. The alien coalition, sensing victory, launched a massive assault, throwing everything they had at the human colony. This time, however, the defenders were ready. Alina stood at the command center, her eyes glued to the tactical displays as the battle unfolded. Now, she barked, and the human forces sprung into action, unleashing a devastating barrage of firepower that caught the invaders completely off guard. The ensuing clash was brutal, with both sides fighting for their very survival. But as the dust settled, it became clear that the humans had emerged victorious, their once perceived weaknesses transformed into formidable strengths. Alina watched as the battered remnants of the alien fleet retreated, their commanders no doubt reeling from the unexpected turn of events. She allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. The first phase of their plan had succeeded. In the aftermath of the battle, the human government on Earth finally learned the truth about the attacks on New Andorra. Alina and her team were summoned to a high-level meeting, where they were met with a mix of shock, awe, and grudging respect. You've proven that the galaxy has severely underestimated the capabilities of the human race, the Secretary General of the United Nations said, his voice tinged with a newfound sense of gravity. What you've accomplished here is nothing short of extraordinary. Alina inclined her head, her expression carefully neutral. We did what was necessary to protect our people. The truth is, we've been holding back our true potential for a reason, one that I'm afraid the rest of the galaxy is about to discover. The Secretary General's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Alina took a deep breath. The attacks on New Andorra were just the beginning. This was a calculated effort by a coalition of alien races to cripple humanity before we could upset the balance of power in the galaxy. And now that they've seen what we're truly capable of, they're going to come at us with everything they've got. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Alina continued, her voice steady and resolute. We need to be ready. We need to mobilize our entire military and technological might, because this is a fight for the very survival of our species. The galaxy may have seen us as weak, but they're about to learn the hard way that humanity is anything but. As the meeting adjourned, Alina and her team knew that the true battle was only just beginning. But this time, they were no longer content to play by the rules set by their alien adversaries. The gloves were off, and humanity was ready to reclaim its rightful place in the galactic order. In the aftermath of the decisive battle over New Andorra, the human government on Earth sprang into action, mobilizing its entire military might in preparation for the inevitable counterattack from the alien coalition. Alina and her team, now hailed as heroes, were tapped to spearhead the covert operations that would be crucial to the upcoming conflict. They think they know us, but we're about to show them just how wrong they've been, Alina said grimly during a strategy meeting with the top brass. This time, we're going to be the ones doing the surprising. The plan was audacious, to say the least. Alina and her team would work to meticulously cultivate the image of a weak, disorganized human defense, luring the alien coalition into a false sense of security. Meanwhile, the full might of humanity's military and technological capabilities would be secretly amassed, poised to unleash a devastating counterattack at the precise moment the enemy struck. "They'll be expecting us to hunker down and play defense," Volkov said, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "But we're going to take the fight to them and show them the true fury of the human race." Across the human colonies and military installations, the preparations began in earnest. Experimental technologies were fast-tracked, elite special forces units were mobilized, and a vast network of intelligence operatives was deployed to gather critical intel on the alien coalition's movements and intentions. Alina oversaw it all, her once unassuming role as a colonial security chief transformed into that of a key strategist in humanity's fight for survival. She knew that the stakes could not be higher. Failure was simply not an option. As the weeks turned into months, the deception unfolded with meticulous precision. The human fleet on New Andorra began to appear increasingly disorganized and demoralized, while the colony's defenses were deliberately weakened to create an illusion of vulnerability. Meanwhile, Alina and her team worked tirelessly behind the scenes, coordinating the covert mobilization of the human military's most advanced assets. Advanced fighter craft, heavily armored ground vehicles, and experimental energy weapons were quietly moved into position, ready to be unleashed at a moment's notice. The alien coalition, sensing an opportunity, began to amass its forces for a decisive assault. Alina watched the intelligence reports with a mix of trepidation and anticipation, knowing that the moment of truth was rapidly approaching. "They're finally making their move," she announced to her team during a late-night strategy session. "This is it, people. Time to show the galaxy what we're really made of." The final preparations were made, and the human forces on New Andorra hunkered down, their apparent weakness and disorganization only serving to further lure the alien invaders into a false sense of security. When the assault finally came, it was a display of overwhelming force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The alien coalition, confident in their perceived superiority, launched their attack with all the fury of a vengeful storm, their ships and ground forces converging on the human colony with devastating precision. But as the enemy forces closed in, Alina gave the order, and the human military sprang into action. Advanced fighter craft screamed through the skies, unleashing a barrage of precision-guided missiles that tore through the alien ships like paper. On the ground, heavily armored vehicles and power-armored infantry squads engaged the enemy with devastating firepower, their movements coordinated with ruthless efficiency. The battle raged for hours, with both sides fighting for their very survival. But slowly, inexorably, the tide began to turn in humanity's favor. The alien coalition, shocked by the sudden and overwhelming display of human military prowess, found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned at every turn. Alina watched from the command center, her expression grim but determined. "They never saw it coming," she murmured, her fingers flying across the console as she directed the human forces with surgical precision. As the last of the alien ships retreated, limping away from the devastation, a cheer went up from the human forces. Alina allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. The first phase of their plan had been a resounding success. In the aftermath of the battle, the human government on Earth was flooded with urgent communiques from the galactic community, each one filled with a mix of shock, fear, and begrudging respect. "How is this possible?" demanded the ambassador from the Orcs Dominion, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "We were led to believe that humans were weak, easy targets, yet you have just decimated one of the most formidable military coalitions in the galaxy." Alina stood before the holographic display, her posture calm and confident. "The galaxy has long underestimated the true capabilities of the human race. We have been content to play by your rules, to present a facade of weakness and vulnerability. But the time has come to reveal our true strength." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled alien dignitaries. "Make no mistake, this was merely a taste of what we are capable of. If you continue to threaten the human race, you will face the full fury of our military might. We are no longer content to be overlooked and underestimated." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Alina could see the fear and uncertainty in the eyes of the alien ambassadors, their carefully constructed notions of human inferiority crumbling before them. "What do you want from us?" the Orcs ambassador finally asked, her voice laced with trepidation. Alina's expression hardened. "We want recognition. We want respect. And we want a seat at the table as equal partners in the galactic community. No more condescension, no more dismissal. Humanity has come of age, and it's time for the rest of you to recognize that fact." The ambassador opened her mouth to respond, but Alina raised a hand, silencing her. "Think carefully about your next move, Orcs. The fate of your entire civilization may depend on it." As the aliens departed, Alina could see the fear and uncertainty in their eyes. They had been shaken to the core, their carefully constructed worldview upended. And that was precisely the reaction she had hoped for. "The first phase is complete," she said to Volkov, who had quietly joined her in the command center. "Now comes the hard part, convincing the rest of the galaxy that humanity is a force to be reckoned with." Volkov nodded, his weathered face etched with a mixture of pride and determination. "We're ready, Alina. Humanity is ready. And this time, we're not going to back down." The future, it seemed, was about to take a dramatic turn, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the aftermath of the decisive battle over New Andorra, the galactic community was left reeling, their carefully constructed perceptions of human weakness shattered beyond repair. The once dismissive attitude towards the human race had given way to a mix of fear, respect, and uncertainty. Alina watched from the command center as the comm channels buzzed with a flurry of activity, alien ambassadors and military commanders scrambling to make sense of what had just transpired. She allowed herself a small, satisfied smile, knowing that the first phase of their plan had been a resounding success. "They never saw it coming," Mikhail Volkov murmured, standing at her side. "All those years of underestimating us, and now they're left wondering what else we've been hiding." Alina nodded, her expression grim. "This is just the beginning, Mikhail. The real challenge is going to be convincing the rest of the galaxy that we're ready to take our place as equals in the galactic community." The demands for answers and explanations poured in, each one tinged with a mixture of fear and begrudging respect. Alina and her team fielded the communications, carefully crafting their responses to exude a sense of calm confidence that belied the true nature of humanity's military capabilities. "We have been content to play by your rules for far too long," Alina told the Orcs ambassador, her voice steady and unwavering. "But the time has come for that to change. Humanity is no longer willing to be overlooked and dismissed. We are a force to be reckoned with, and we demand a seat at the table as equals." The ambassador, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and apprehension, could only nod mutely in response. Alina knew that the message had been received, loud and clear. As the news of the human victory on New Andorra spread throughout the galaxy, the ripple effects were felt far and wide. Rival alien factions, once dismissive of the human race, now found themselves reevaluating their stance, wondering just what other secrets the humans might be hiding. "They shattered the paradigm," murmured a high-ranking Voldixian military commander, his brow furrowed in deep thought. "Everything we thought we knew about humanity has been upended. We can no longer afford to underestimate them." The Orcs Dominion, once the driving force behind the coalition that had targeted the human colonies, found itself in a precarious position. Their failed assault had exposed the vulnerability of their own military capabilities, and they knew that retaliating against the humans would be a dangerous gambit. "We must tread carefully," the Orcs ambassador said to her colleagues during a tense strategy meeting. "Provoking the humans further would be a grave mistake. We need to find a way to coexist, to establish a new balance of power in the galaxy." But not everyone was inclined to take such a cautious approach. The Zerithian Imperium, a militaristic alien civilization, known for its expansionist tendencies, saw the human victory as an opportunity to seize greater power and influence in the galactic community. "This is our chance to strike," the Zerithian Empress declared, her eyes glinting with a dangerous hunger. "The humans have shown their hand, and now we can exploit their weaknesses. With the right strategy, we can crush them and solidify our dominance once and for all." Alina and her team closely monitored the developments in the galactic power structures, their fingers poised on the triggers of a vast array of military assets that had been carefully hidden from view. They knew that the next move would be crucial, a delicate balancing act between asserting their strength and avoiding unnecessary escalation. "We need to be the ones in control of the narrative," Alina said during a strategy session with the human government on Earth. "The galaxy has to see us as a force to be reckoned with, but also as a stabilizing presence that can bring order and cooperation to the chaos." The Secretary General of the United Nations nodded, his expression grave. "Easier said than done, Alina. The factions are already jockeying for position, and the last thing we need is an all-out war that could devastate the entire galactic community." Alina's gaze hardened. "Then we need to be the ones to prevent that. We need to step forward and offer a path forward, one that acknowledges our strength while also demonstrating our willingness to work alongside the other civilizations as equals." The plan they devised was bold, ambitious, and fraught with risk. But Alina and her team knew that the stakes were too high to back down. They had come too far to let the galaxy continue to dismiss and underestimate the human race. As the human government on Earth prepared to make their move, Alina couldn't help but feel a sense of cautious optimism. The galaxy was on the precipice of a new era, one where humanity would no longer be content to lurk in the shadows, but rather step forward as a force to be reckoned with. "We've shown them what we're capable of," she told Volkov, her voice tinged with a newfound sense of purpose. "Now it's time to show them what we're willing to do to protect our place in the galaxy." Volkov nodded, his weathered face etched with a mixture of pride and determination. "We're ready, Alina. Humanity is ready. And this time, we're not going to back down." The future, it seemed, was about to take a dramatic turn, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the aftermath of the decisive battle over New Andorra, the human government on Earth wasted no time in seizing the initiative. Alina and her team had carefully crafted a plan that would not only cement humanity's place as a formidable force in the galaxy, but also position the human race as a stabilizing presence capable of bringing order to the chaos. The first step was a bold diplomatic gambit, one that would send shockwaves through the galactic community. Alina, accompanied by a delegation of human political and military leaders, traveled to the heart of the Orcs Dominion, the very alien civilization that had orchestrated the failed attacks on the human colonies. The Orcs ambassador, still reeling from the humiliating defeat, greeted the humans with a mix of trepidation and grudging respect. "We didn't expect you to come here, openly, after what has transpired," she admitted, her tone laced with a hint of unease. Alina inclined her head, her expression calm and confident. "We're here to extend an olive branch, Orcs. The time has come for us to move beyond the conflict and work towards a new era of cooperation and mutual understanding." The ambassador's brow furrowed. "Cooperation? After what your people did to our fleet? Forgive me if I find that hard to believe." Alina raised a hand, silencing the ambassador before she could continue. "We acknowledge the role we played in the escalation of hostilities. But the truth is, we were merely defending our own people, a response that any civilization in our position would have taken." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the room, taking in the wary expressions of the Orcs officials. "What we're offering now is a chance to put the past behind us and work together to build a more stable and prosperous future for all." The ambassador studied Alina's face, searching for any sign of deception. "And what exactly do you propose?" "An alliance," Alina stated, her voice clear and unwavering. "We are willing to share our knowledge, our technology, and our resources with the Orcs Dominion and the broader galactic community. but only if we are treated as true partners, not subservient allies. The room erupted into a chorus of murmurs and hushed discussions, the Orcs officials clearly caught off guard by the boldness of the human proposal. Alina waited patiently, her gaze unwavering, until the ambassador finally raised a hand to restore order. "This is an unexpected offer," the ambassador admitted, her eyes narrowed in contemplation. "One that will require careful consideration. You must understand, the Orcs Dominion has long viewed your people as a threat to our way of life." Alina nodded. "I am well aware of that sentiment, Orcs. But I ask you to consider this. The true threat to your way of life lies not in humanity, but in the growing instability of the galactic community. We have the power to help stabilize the balance of power, to bring order where there is chaos." The ambassador's expression softened, a glimmer of understanding dawning in her eyes. "You make a compelling case, Alina. Perhaps there is a way for our civilizations to coexist, even thrive, as partners." Alina allowed herself a small smile. "Then let us begin the process of building that partnership, Orcs. The future of the galaxy may very well depend on it." Over the following weeks and months, the diplomatic overtures between humanity and the Orcs Dominion intensified, with both sides cautiously exploring the potential for a lasting alliance. Meanwhile, Alina and her team worked tirelessly to extend similar olive branches to other influential alien civilizations, each one wary but intrigued by the human offer of cooperation and mutual understanding. "They're finally starting to see us as equals," Volkov remarked during one of their strategy sessions, a hint of pride in his voice. "The galaxy is becoming a much more complicated place, and they know they need our help to maintain the balance of power." Alina nodded, her expression thoughtful. "That's precisely why we need to be the ones guiding this shift, Mikhail. We can't let the Zerithians or any other faction disrupt the fragile peace we're trying to build." The mention of the Zerithian Imperium prompted a dark look to cross Volkov's face. "They're still out there, waiting for their chance to strike. We can't let our guard down, not for a moment." Alina placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "Don't worry, Mikhail. We're ready for them. We've been preparing for this moment for years, and we're not going to let anyone jeopardize what we've built." As the diplomatic negotiations continued, the human government on Earth began to unveil a series of ambitious initiatives, each one designed to showcase the depth and breadth of humanity's technological and scientific capabilities. Cutting-edge advancements in energy generation, interstellar propulsion, and medical research were all shared with the galactic community, cementing the human race's reputation as a formidable force to be reckoned with. The Zerithian Imperium, meanwhile, watched these developments with growing unease, their eyes narrowed in suspicion. The Empress, her thirst for power unquenched, refused to accept the idea of humanity as an equal partner in the galactic order. "They're trying to lull us into a false sense of security," she growled to her military commanders. "We need to strike now, before they have a chance to solidify their position." But the Orcs Dominion, now firmly allied with the human government, moved swiftly to block the Zerithians' aggressive overtures, warning them in no uncertain terms that any attempt to disrupt the fragile peace would be met with the full might of the human Orcs coalition. "The balance of power has shifted," the Orcs ambassador told the Zerithian Empress, her voice laced with a hint of triumph. "The galaxy is no longer yours for the taking. Humanity has taken its rightful place, and we will not allow you to upset the delicate equilibrium we've worked so hard to establish." The Empress, her ambitions thwarted, could only seethe in frustrated silence, realizing that the human race was no longer the easy target they had once been. The galaxy, it seemed, had been forever changed by the revelation of humanity's true capabilities. As the dust settled, Alina and her team watched the developments with a mixture of satisfaction and cautious optimism. They had accomplished their goal. Humanity had emerged from the shadows and taken its place as a respected and influential member of the galactic community. But they also knew that the fight was far from over, and that they would need to remain vigilant in the face of any new threats or challenges. "We've come a long way, Mikhail," Alina said, gazing out at the stars that dotted the night sky. "But the true test is just beginning. The galaxy may fear and respect us now, but we have to prove that we're worthy of that respect, that we can be a force for stability and progress." Volkov nodded, his expression solemn. "We're ready, Alina. Humanity is ready. And this time, we're not going to back down." The future, it seemed, was full of boundless possibilities, and the human race was determined to leave its mark on the galaxy forever.